Jai Shri Ramachandra Ki Jai. Good morning. You'll recall from the last several parts done last week, on last Saturday and Sunday, how the story gave rise ultimately to a great victory, and that is that Rama manages to take the heirloom given by Varuna to King Janaka, a great bow that was wheeled out, and the challenge was, can you break it? Let me try, says Rama. And in a modest way, he says it. And then, of course, we know from last week, last Sunday, how that great silver bow belonging to Shiva was not only lifted easily, but also broken. And it's the first time that I think in the history of man that a precious heirloom, if it's broken, everybody celebrates. Normally they'd say, what a tragedy. It was an antique. We lost thousands of euros. So with all of these episodes, we have to understand there should be a lesson in it for us. What's the point of a story unless there's a lesson somewhere for us? And all the great epics, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, they all have great lessons. Even the smallest episodes have lessons. Last time we also talked about the sage Gautama and how he managed to curse his wife, and how Rama, by his very footprints on the sand, managed to restore his precious wife to him again. And what's remarkable is how all these Kshatriyas tried to lift this bow. And King Janaka, that was his challenge. You can marry my daughter, the purest of the pure, the most beautiful, the daughter of the earth herself. And none could succeed. They all went in a state of humiliation. But Rama says humbly, let me try. In other words, the possibility of me failing, at least let me try. And this, what is our lesson in life? It should be our attitude. Let me do it anyway, regardless of whether I succeed or fail. I'll do it. I'll take the challenge. And so the divine strength was there. All our strength comes from the divine. Don't think we have our own individual muscular power. All the neurological system, the body is all powered by a universal power that we call divine power, God's energy. So it is true to say that in the English translation of the Ramayana, which is closest to Valmiki's words and his poetry, it comes out like this: effortlessly, as if it was his own weapon that he carried at his back every day, Rama picked up Shiva's bow from its casket. The crowd sighed. The crowd had gathered naturally. And calmly, is how we should approach every challenge in life. Calmly, the prince bent the bow and strung it. And a thunderbolt exploded, or a thunder flash exploded in his hands. You can imagine the scene. We can embellish it a little bit. What happened? Well, the earth shook and most of the people fell down stunned. Shiva's awesome bow had snapped in two. In other words, whatever awesome challenges we have, we can simply break with a calm attitude, and we can do it effortlessly given the right method. If we panic about it, we won't be able to do it. You can imagine all these princes intimidated by this great bow with a history. By the way, you can try it, but nobody has succeeded in even lifting this thing. So great is this. And then to think, oh, it's Shiva. Shiva is such a great, great deity. Naturally, we won't be able to do it. And they predicted their own failure. So Shiva's awesome bow was snapped, and smiling faintly, imagine with a small smile on his face, Rama placed the pieces back in the casket as if, oh, sorry, I broke it back. Thank you. And of course, now Janaka runs forward. He's delighted. This great, great, handsome and virtuous prince is there. But also, Sita is also looking from her room, just to remind you of the last episode. And high up in Janaka's palace, we can imagine something like, you see, if you go to say Delhi, or just outside Delhi, if you go to the Shah Jahan's palace, where you can look over and see the Taj Mahal in the distance, and you can see all kinds of courtyards and windows and lattices where people can peep into the courtyard discreetly, all of these kinds of things. So we can imagine Sita looking, and she was delighted. And the poet says she had lost her heart the moment she set eyes on him in the first place. And it was this prince that she had always dreamed of and waited for. It's like a fairy story. She knew him from long ago, from countless lives before, and they had belonged together since time began, because theologically they are the eternal twin pair of male and female, lover beloved. So that was where we left off, and naturally word has to go from Mithila out to King Dasaratha. And so like the wind, Janaka's messengers rode for some 3 days and odd. And we have to bear in mind the state that Dasaratha was in when his sons left. He had no choice. He had to give his 16-year-old sons to Vishwamitra and say, all right, I've kept my word, I won't dare cross your wrath and your path. Otherwise, I know what happens. Great sages have the power of cursing at a glance. So I go, but with a heavy heart, because I miss these two sons. So attached was he to his princes, that now these messengers come along in haste. Come on, open the gates, take us to your king. And we are coming with joyful news from not only King Janaka, but also Vishwamitra, because he's the one who took the boys away. And now immediately he registered, oh, this must be news about Rama as well, Rama and Lakshmana. And so, of course, Dasaratha welcomes them eagerly in his place, in his room, in his sabha, in his gathering hall. And the messengers announce, great Dasaratha, King Janaka of Mithila, sends his greetings, like a formal announcement. But he's not exactly saying what it is. So King Dasaratha, he knows this must be something, not only about Vishwamitra and all that, and King Janaka, but my sons must be involved somewhere. So he waves impatiently to the man that he should deliver the news he brought. Come on, tell me, open your mouth. And as the gathering in Ayodhya sat, hushed, waiting for the news, the messenger said, Janaka wants you to hear a petition from him. So although it's all agreed on the other side, there's still the father's approval has to be there. And a petition, please, is it okay with you? And the petition comes with heavy weight because it comes from Brahmarishi Vishwamitra also. So Janaka wants to hear the petition. Where's the petition coming from? Vishwamitra, can't resist. My master says, I have a daughter called Sita. I swore that the man who marries her must first string the bow of Shiva. And countless kshatriyas have done this, of course, have tried, and they failed. They failed not only to string it, but they failed to move the bow. The bow had to be brought along on a huge carriage. But Dasaratha, your son Rama, witnessed by crowds of people, rishis and so on, he strung Shiva's bow. And he did it as if it were a toy. All the so-called intimidating and intimidatory obstacles that we have in life, If we treat it as a mere toy, we can get around it. We have the resources to get around it. We can do it easily. I want Sita to become your son's wife, was the announcement. That's the key thing. And my Lord, accept my gift, more precious to me than life. I beg you, come quickly to Mithila to bless the young couple. My gift? That's your daughter-in-law. Janaka awaits your reply. Is it okay? Of course, Dasaratha, in contrast to the mood that he had when they all left, he was delighted. He rose and cried, the children are in Videha with Vishwamitra, and you all hear what my Rama has done. He's boasting. See what my son has done. And he turns to Vashishta, Vamadeva, and other ministers. Janaka wants to have the wedding as soon as he can. And if none of you has any objection, let us go to Mithila straight away. It's interesting that the king, although a king, autocratically, still has to consult his ministers and close advisors. And so the rishis gave their assent happily, for Sita's fame had spread long ago to Ayodhya. And it was decided they would leave the next morning. So after their journey, the messengers from Mithila, they slept soundly, but the king of Koshala hardly slept that night, because he was excited as a little boy in the thought of seeing Rama again. It seemed like a lifetime since his son had gone away, and he had had no news from Vishwamitra until now. Anyway, you can imagine that the next day, a big assembly is drawn up, chariots, palanquins, royal procession, flags, and all that. And the royal family gleamed in the dawn outside the palace. You can just imagine the scene. Of course, all night preparations had been underway in the queen's apartments and in the treasury, because a big deal. You can imagine now, today, what a big deal a wedding ceremony is as well. Even though it's a little interesting, where the marriage ceremony takes place on a stage somewhere around a fire and other people eat ice cream and make noise. A festive atmosphere. Never mind, there's a formality to it also. So this was no ordinary visit by one king to another. This was a special event. And not only that, but as all marriages throughout the entire world, Ireland included, marriages between royal family and royal family are alliances as well. So it gives a certain potency. If I'm in trouble, I can call on my ally. Why? Because we're family. So this was the occasion of Rama's wedding, and cartloads of gold and priceless jewelry would travel with the party from Ayodhya. Now it was customary for them to go ahead, and the king's rishis, Vashishta and the others were the first to leave. And when the sun was halfway to its zenith, say something like about 10 o'clock in the morning, something like it is at the moment, but not in Ireland, then at that time Dasaratha himself emerged from the palace, and he was greeted with a roar from his people, thronging to see him off to the wedding of their beloved Rama. You can see the cohesiveness of the whole society. It's not like corruption in the cabinet or something like that, and Boris Johnson has to leave. Nothing like that. There is a whole cohesiveness. On what basis? On the basis of mutual love and respect. That if you see Valmiki's description of Ayodhya, a modern city with gardens laid out, and roads and sanitary facilities, and storage grains for food, and we are reminded of the civilizations that have been discovered archaeologically in the Saraswati Valley and the Gangetic Plain and so on, in the Indus Valley, the Harappa culture. We get a good flavor using the mud-baked bricks from the river mud, sophisticated streets, houses, sanitary facilities, public tanks for bathing, and provisions for storage of grain, and sophisticated drainage systems, as I say, and facilities for marketplaces and gardens, So not only housing estates, if you want to call it like that, but also dealing with the cultural aesthetic side of a city to make people happy. Nowadays, they say that, I'm not sure which Scandinavian country it is, I think it's Denmark, is the happiest country in the world. But when you look at it, I don't think it's true. Because happiness, you'd expect people to be jumping with joy, you know. But I don't think you'll find that in Denmark. They're quite a serious people, but their lifestyle is good, you know. And so can you imagine now a lifestyle that is good, but by the same token, the joy of royal weddings, family that they're close to. You can see flavors of this in Britain, where royal families get married and the whole nation celebrates and the Queen has a jubilee and so on. Anyway, the whole thing, they took, the whole party takes 5 days actually to reach Mithila. And Janaka rode out from his city to welcome Dasarata and his company, as you would. And with his relatives, his ministers, and Sadananda, Janaka came to meet Dasarata. He saw Rama's father and eschewing formality, he rode forward and embraced Dasarata emotionally. You can imagine the scene. And all this is witnessed by the citizenry. So the people saw that both kings had tears in their eyes. What a happy occasion. Couldn't wish for more of a happy occasion. Now, we have to understand the Ramayana so far is fought with drama of two sets of opposites. One is, you can say, a kind of drama that gives us cause to be a little fearful, a little, holding us in suspense a little bit, where Vishwamitra expresses his mood, and then you see the danger of demons and combating them, and the tragedy of sons leaving at such a tender age, and the threat of their demise because it's a dangerous situation they're going to. Contrasted with this happy scene, a reconciliation. Well, life is exactly like this, and we can see throughout the whole Ramayana. Now, this includes the last section, which many commentators think is an interposition, but I can assure you it's not. Because any story that ends happily ever after is not a reflection of life. Things do not necessarily happily end happily ever after. So anyway, King Janaka now welcomes his royal guests formally. The informality is there, the emotion out of the way. My lord, I thank you for coming to Mithila. Makes a big speech. And you honor me by accepting my hospitality. I am already 3 times blessed that the great Vashishta has come to my city, and Vamadeva and Markandeya with him, all great sages. But more than anything, great sages. So the kings are honored, but more than that, the sages are honored. The kingdoms run on wisdom. But more than anything else, Dasarata, your son has realized my most cherished dream for me. And if he hadn't come, I would have been forced to break my oath that Sita would marry only the man who strung Shiva's bow and settle for somebody less. And my great ceremony, my yajna, is almost complete. And as its culmination, as it's in the process of culminating now, you must allow me to have Rama and Sita married. And so, of course, Dasarata bows and happily says, it's not my place to tell a king like you, see the mutual flattery going on, diplomacy at its height, when the wedding should take place. Your brahmanas must know that better than I, so they can fix the date, please. But I'm here, so let it be soon. I don't want to go back and come back again. And Janaka took Dasarata's arm. They entered Mithila together. And here also the people milled in the streets to welcome the king from Ayodhya. Dasarata and his party, they were lodged in a palace that was prepared for their stay, and Vishwamitra waited for them there. Overwhelmed when he saw the Rishi, Dasaratha prostrated himself at his feet because this is the first time he'd seen him since the palace in Ayodhya. And Vishwamitra, and thankfully, you looked after my sons. Not only that, but you now brought them to this wedding and arranged for the marriage. And as you entered into my palace in Ayodhya, I was thinking about the destiny of my sons and who should marry Rama to carry on the lineage. And it's all sorted out through divine grace. So Vishwamitra raised him up gently. No. Dasaratha, I hope you don't regret having sent your sons with me. There's a little humor in what he's saying. And the ways of fate are mysterious, and I have lived longer than you to know them. In other words, I knew my destiny all right. I knew how things would turn out well. Now, there's a lesson even in this, how circumstances assail us, and we can be extremely doubtful and a lack of faith from time to time. And then when we see the divine hand in everything, we look back in hindsight, see the milestones facilitating the way for us, and naturally we'd be thankful for it. So he leads the king inside with an arm around his shoulders, and then Dasaratha's face lit up, as if the sun had risen in his heart, because there for the first time in all this while he saw Rama, who was waiting there, and Lakshmana beside him. Janaka and Vishwamitra left the father and his sons together. Naturally, it's a private, intimate moment. He withdraws, and to the place where the Vedas were being chanted to conclude his own yajna. Anyway, the evening was upon them, and the princes were left alone with Dasaratha. And of course, Dasaratha continues, his affection with tears flowing down his face. And you can imagine the drama, but not quite the drama you'd see in a movie, because, the camera pans in and pans out, the music rises up, and you spend half an hour looking at the tears flowing in Dasaratha's face and so on. Anyway, he makes them sit close to there beside him and rest for the rest of the while. And he makes them repeat all their adventures. Come on, what happened since you were gone? Your adventures with Vishwamitra, tell me all about it. Beginning from the day you left Ayodhya to now. And ending with Rama's episode of stringing the bow and so on. Rama and Lakshmana, they spend the night with their father, telling him, catching him up with the news. And the sacrifice that was ongoing was concluded. And then Janaka says to his Rishi advisor there, I want to share my joy with my brother Kusadwaja, and so other marriages can take place here now, actually. Anyway, Sadananda sent messages to Kushadwaja, who is the king of Samkosha, beside the limpid Ikshumati. When his brother arrived, Janaka, his ministers, his gurus, and his family gathered in the royal gathering place. They in these big cities and these big palaces, they had special gathering places where people could meet. On a daily basis, citizens would be allowed to come and put a petition and set problems before the king and his council. So the king was kept pretty busy with this. Anyway, Janaka says to his chief minister, my lord, fetch Dasaratha and his sons to our gathering place, our Sabha. And the king of Ayodhya and his princes, they came along. And they are now resplendent. And so Janaka and Kushadwaja, they go to Dasaratha with folded hands, with Rama, with Lakshmana, and golden thrones set apart from them. And Dasaratha says solemnly, Janaka, my friend, my Guru Vasishta will recall the ancestry of the young man who is to marry your daughter. This was a kind of custom to say, see, it's a good family. So Vashishta rose and traced the line of Manu. That's where the Ikshvaku, the solar dynasty, I should say, comes from. And he told of the greatness of Ikshvaku, who was the first mortal king to rule Ayodhya. He told of Trishanku, Yuvanashva of renown, and his son, who was called the jewel of the Krita Yuga. And of Sagara, he spoke of the Anasuman, Bhagirata, Kakuchta, Raghu, Ajja, all of these in the lineage. And of course, Ajju's son was Dasarath himself. He ended formally Brahma's son, the Kula Guru of Ikshvaku, the royal house of the sun. Now you know the antecedents of Rama. Of course, it's all agreed, but it's formality. See, we come from a good family. There are no scoundrels in our family. Be pleased to give your daughter Sita, who is a rare treasure among women, to Dasaratha's son. What is her lineage? She comes from the earth, Mother Earth. She's a divine goddess, embodiment of the Mother Earth. So Janaka bowed to Vashishta. He rose from his throne and said, "My lords, I too will tell you about my ancestors. Nimi was the first of our line, and after his son Miti, that's why this place is called Mithila." And he began to account the illustrious line. Each king was named down to the august generations, and his fame recited until he came to Swanaroma, who was his own father. And then Janaka said, "I ask you humbly to accept my daughter Sita to be your son Rama's wife. And I have another daughter, actually, Urmila, and she also is eligible. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And a lovely child, you know. And I would be delighted if you take her to be the magnificent Lakshmana's bride." So now it's a double joy. 2 sons married, 2 daughters married. And he bows to Dasaratha, who smiles and said, "It's our privilege to have your daughters for our sons' wives." Vishwamitra stood up suddenly and said, Wait. Your brother has 2 daughters also. And I propose that they be married to Bharata and Shatrugna. So let your 2 ancient houses be bound together inextricably. Now look, what began as Rama breaking the bow has now ended in a joyous occasion fourfold. And a murmur of approval hummed through the court, and Kushadhwaja rose and endorsed Vishwamitra's proposal. Embracing Dasaratha, Janaka said, "My friend, let your sons purify themselves with the proper rituals. Their days from today under the auspicious Uttara Palguni Nakshatra will solemnize the weddings." And the kings returned to their apartments. You can see the level of detail that has gone into this. Not only looking for the auspicious timing for events, but also the purification that is required for any important ceremony. There are a number of rites, if you like, a number of important events that mark the ancient days and today as well. That means for every significant event in a person's life should bring us thoughtfully back to the divine arrangement. For example, when a child is born, all right, the naming. At a certain age in some cultures, the boring of the ear for the earrings, whether it's boy or girl. At some stage, of course, the taking solid food. And then the first day a child goes to school and the books that are given. Like that, you see. And so it goes on all through life, these various milestones in a person's life that is to God. Anyway, we go to the next section now. Vishwamitra's role, of course, has come to an end with this. And it's affairs of the King Dasharatha in the beginning, but a more benign act than what he did could not be expected. Of all concerned, everybody, see the welfare of Dasharatha, the welfare of the citizens of Ayodhya, the welfare of these two kingdoms making natural alliances. There were already alliances, no doubt, but so Vishwamitra managed to take charge of the adolescences, Rama, and the sage then retired into the Himalayas to be merged into beatitude, and that's the of the sage Vishwamitra. Now, then we have to deal with the return. And so, details, because of course a marriage is going to take place, and so on. And we now come to a very important and significant episode in this, involving another avatara, Parasurama, and a very curious episode that we can't avoid. But before that, of course, we'll do the wedding. So at the appointed day and hour, giving away the bride, King Janaka said to Rama, "Here is my daughter Sita, who will ever tread with you the path," acknowledging that Rama is the embodiment of dharma. What is dharma? That principle that holds everything in harmony, holds everything, knits things together, binds things together, that holding principle. And because of that, there are many, many terms for dharma, alternative terms, morality, justice, religion, if you will, righteousness, and all of those kinds of things. And so we have to remind ourselves that Rama, principally in this incarnation, is the embodiment of dharma, to set the things right. Anyway, he says, "Take her hand in yours, blessed and devoted. She will ever walk with you like your own shadow." And so, is that a subordinate role? Is a question that we have to ask in these modern times. No, because where you go, your shadow goes automatically. You don't force a shadow, it's already there. So there are twin things here going on. There are two aspects. One aspect is Rama, the other aspect is Sita. So we can't easily from here on say Rama alone. We have to say Sita Ram. So it goes on like this: Yam Sita Mama like that. Praticha Janam Panina Pativrata Mahabhagha Kacheva Nyugatasta in the north part of India when the bride is given away. And so Sita, given by Janaka to Ram, were they not eternal lovers reunited? Yes. See, it adds to the beauty of a story. When you say they married, they lived happily ever after, let's say in Cinderella or something like that, these other stories that we get maybe from Grimm's fairy tales and so on, that also have ancient origins, Now, but it's not a romance for the first time. It's a rediscovery. That adds to the beauty of it. And so eternal lovers reunited, and they rejoice like lovers come together after separation. Thus, they handed back Dasara, and after attending all the wedding celebrations, as I said before, so just as Vishwamitra dominates this section, which is the Balakanda, and it doesn't appear again afterwards, in the same way, other characters, Kaikeyi, Guha, they're prominent only in the next Kanda, which is the Ayodhya Kanda. And the same thing can be said for Bharata, and we don't come across him in any other chapters, except where he's intervening between Chitrakuta meeting and Rama's return to Ayodhya. Now, Valmiki hardly brings Bharata before our eyes during the periods of Rama's distress. Rama's distress is to come. We're preempting a little bit. And the character, just general review of some characters. And Valmiki's Ramayana, unlike those in, say, other epics, the Mahabharata and so on, and also other ordinary plays and novels, they don't present themselves off and on all the time. And the critics should bear this general characteristic of Valmiki's epic in mind. Why didn't they appear later, and so on and so forth? Do they take a bow at the end, and all these questions? Not like that. They come when they are required. And King Dasaratha now returns to Ayodhya. He's accompanied by his whole retinue. On the way, everything's so joyful, isn't it? On the way, what do you think? What has to happen? Bad omens. Naturally. All the good things are gone, and Vishwamitra can't support them. He's gone off to the Himalayas. So, some bad omens are there. And seeing them, Dasaratha asks Vashishta what they mean. And Vashishta replies that there was no need to be alarmed. He's a sage. He's always calm. No need to be alarmed, he says. For though the birds in the air indicated approaching trouble, these are the portents that people look for. If you go into the African bush and suddenly birds fly off, you know something else is there. Either another human or an animal. More than likely an animal is there, frightening them, possibly a lion or some dangerous animal. So by reading the behavior of the birds, we know pretty much what dangers lie around us. So though the birds indicate approaching trouble, the animals on the land promised a happy consummation. In other words, the things that are frightening the birds, they're actually okay. And so as Dasaratha and Vashishta were thus talking, there broke out a great storm coming. You'll notice birds are aware of the storms. You'll notice that in the great tsunami that happened a few years ago, no animals were harmed in this movie. They all sought higher ground. It is only the very wisest of all creatures, man, who stood there with a cine camera watching the tsunami come toward him, washing away his camera and his life as well. But the animals, in their stupidity, they were wise enough to go to higher ground. So as Dasaratha and Vashishta were talking and discussing these various things, a great storm, and in the storm, trees were uprooted. That's the violence of the storm. And the earth quaked and clouds of dust went up, and they hit the sun, and there was an all-enveloping darkness. Now, historians might look back and see, was there something that happened in those days or in days like that? And we know of the great volcanic eruptions some 60, 70,000 years ago. I'm not suggesting that this was the case, but we can imagine the devastation that such a huge event can occur, where the sun is blacked out and the air is thick with volcanic ash, and much of life is actually decimated. I'm not suggesting that this episode was one of these, but you can see how easily the weather can change. Not just the weather, but you can see how nature is both benign and malign. It has two different aspects, and the swing, the movement between these two extremes is how the world moves and operates. It's meant to be like that. So we can imagine the earth is quaking, clouds of dust are there hiding the sun, and all enveloping darkness. And when you're caught in that, you don't know the reason why necessarily. And everyone was terror-struck. And soon they knew the reason for the strange phenomena. What is it? There stood before them the awe-inspiring figure of Parasurama. Parasurama is the sworn enemy of the Kshatriyas. It's the only incarnation we have who is a Brahmin, who to date, except maybe those who accept Ramakrishna. Of course, he was a Brahmin also. But up to now, up to this point, only Kshatriyas. Anyway, he was there with a bow on one shoulder and a battle axe on the other. That's how he looked. And with an arrow shining like lightning in his hand. His appearance was actually terrible. And just to describe how he looked like an ascetic. He had matted locks gathered overhead. In fact, he looked like Rudra, which is the ancient name for Shiva. He looked like Rudra exulting in the destruction of Tripura. His face emitted flame-like radiance. And the son of sage Jamadagni struck terror among the Kshatriyas, many generations of which he had annihilated with his axe. Wherever he went, he was on a mission. He was preceded by storm and earthquake, and the Kshatriya race trembled in fear. The Brahmanas in Dasaratha's retinue said to one another, they explained why. You see, his father was killed by a king. Parasurama took a vow to destroy the Kshatriya race. And we dared to hope that his vengeful wrath had been quenched in the blood of the innumerable kings he has slain, but apparently not. Has he again started his cruel campaign? Looks like there was a lull in it. However, they honored him with the customary offering of water. And receiving it, Parasurama addressed himself to Rama. Now, in any situation, there's a practical lesson here. When somebody is loud and aggressive, it's good to lower your tone and make sure you are even-minded and even in your speech. That's how you bring people down, bring them to your wavelength. The opposite will not work. Somebody gets angry and shouts, and you get angry and shouts, you're out for warfare. And that level of discipline requires a certain level of mental discipline also, where you decide that you will proverbially count to 10, recover from any initial recoil that you had or reaction that you had, and calmly, with a sense of inner wisdom, see the situation and know anger is a temporary issue. And not everybody is angry all the time. If they are, they'd have constant cardiac arrests. So it's not like that. You calm yourself down, the person's blood pressure comes down, you talk nicely, you agree where you can, you keep silent where you can't, and you now become more reasonable. The antidote to all emotion is reason. So, Son of Dasaratha, he says, I have heard of your prowess. I was somewhat surprised to learn that you strung the bow in King Janaka's court, and yet you drew the string till the bow broke. Well, here's my bow, and it's equal in all respects to one that you broke. In fact, you see, the bow that Rama broke was Shiva's bow. Unless you think that is not equal to Vishnu, here's Vishnu's bow. See if you can break that also. So I present to you a bow here, equal in all respects to the one you broke, and this is the bow of Vishnu, which was entrusted to my father. And if you're able to string this bow, you'll be worthy of my battle. Not that you'll win, you'll be worthy to engage me in battle. So it's not really a good win-win situation. It's not looking very bright. Anyway, Dasaratha was perturbed, of course, at this turn of events, and he begs that his son Rama should be spared the trial. And so he says to Parasurama, you look, see, bring the tone down. Let's declutch, let's dilute this anger a little bit. Look, you are a Brahmana. Brahmana, what is that? No, a Brahman. Should you get angry? We have heard that you are satisfied with your revenge, that you've gotten back to tapas, having sought your revenge by killing many kshatriyas, and you have now resorted to discipline, as becomes your order in life as a Brahmana. A Brahmana is a person of peace. And in pursuance of your plighted word to Indra, after giving away the earth you had conquered to Kashipa, is it proper that you should break your vow and seek to injure a prince of tender years? He's done no wrong to you. And then, of course, he gives away his sentiment. And he's dearer to us than life. So Parasurama heard him, but he wasn't very moved. Not much, not big on sentiment. Without so much as looking at him, and addressed himself solely to Rama, bypassing Dasaratha, as though the others didn't exist. Vishwakarma originally came to exactly similar blows, exactly to similar bows that you string. One of them was given to Rudra, the other one was given to Vishnu. So this is the one that is from Vishnu, or given to Vishnu. And what you said to have strung and bent to breaking point was Shiva's bow. Don't forget, Vishwakarma is the architect of the heavens. And so he can give away heirlooms if he likes, and mementos. Anyway, see if you can string this bow of Vishnu. And if you do, it'll be proof of your skill and strength. And then I will then honor you by fighting with you. And so Parasurama spoke in a loud and arrogant tone. And to him Rama replied in a courteous manner, it's the way to declutch anger, yet in firm tones. Son of Jamadagni, you have been vengeful because your father was killed by a king. I don't blame you for that. Wonderful diplomacy. Agreeing where you can. Putting the positive first before the negative. A good sales technique. Oh, this vacuum cleaner is too expensive. Yes, it does seem like that until you realize that it is the best on the market. Something like that, see. But you cannot put me down as you have humbled others. Please give me your bow. He takes up the challenge. And so saying, he took the bow and arrow from Parasurama. So the attitude again gives us the lesson. Yes, take the challenge. So saying, he took the bow and arrow from Parasurama. He strung the bow and setting the arrow to it, drew the string. Addressing Parasurama, he said with a smile, this mighty Vaishnava arrow placed on the string cannot be put back idly. It must destroy something. What will it destroy? Tell me, shall it destroy your powers of locomotion, or would you rather that it consumes the fruits of your tapas? What a bold statement. And as the son of Dasaratha strung the bow of Vishnu, you may add fearlessly, the glory on Parasurama's face faded, and he stood no longer the warlike conqueror, but a self-subdued rishi, for the purpose of the Parasurama avatara was over. Don't forget, this is not an ordinary person. It's not a mere brahmana. And although the story is around the killing of his father and so on, he comes as all, avatara means one who descends, one who comes down, comes for a purpose. What is that purpose? That purpose is to make sure that we all can be subdued, that all our passions can be subdued eventually. And they are subdued in a surprising way. They're subdued not by weakness, but by strength. Parasurama said mildly to the Prince of Ayodhya, I realize who you are. I'm not sorry that you have quenched my arrogance. Let all my tapas go to you. Look at the turn of events. All my austerities, that is the greatest gift anybody can give. All the tapas that I have accumulated over all these many years, I'm going to give to you actually. And therefore the merit of that. So, but because of my promise to Kashyapa, I cannot remain in his domains and have therefore to hurry back to the Mahendra mountains before the sun sets. Now let me use my power of speed or locomotion and movement for the single thing. Subject to this, let the arrow which you have set to the bow consume all my power earned through tapas. And so saying in this way, Parasurama went in reverential circumambulation around the prince, and he departs. Now Ayodhya's citizens were overjoyed to hear that Dasaratha and the royal princes were returning to the capital. The city was festive. They anticipated it, so you can imagine flowers arranged everywhere, streets nicely cleaned and decorated, flags flying, and all this looked like the very Devaloka. Rama and Sita lived happily in Ayodhya for 12 years. That's going on from the story. And Rama had surrendered his heart to Sita. Now, very often you see, and Swami Vivekananda is keen to say it, the ideal woman is Sita. The ideal man is Rama. And when the ideal marriage is Sita Rama. So we can see by this that they are living happily. Now, in contrast to that, in modern society, the most modern and westernized societies, the statistics say that 54% of people who get married get divorced. And sometimes not even after 12 years. So, is there a remedy for this? Is there a model here that we could all follow? Yes. The affection with which they had together is more than just affection or human affection. It is the mutual exchange of hearts and hearts. It is the one entering the other's heart and vice versa. It is the two acting as one. It is two sides of the same coin. And how beautiful we can imagine their life in Ayodhya was together. Rama has surrendered his heart to Sita, in fact. It was difficult for one to say whether their love grew because of their virtues or it was planted in their beauty of form. Their hearts communed even without speech. Sita, rejoicing in Rama's love, shone like Lakshmi in heaven. Long afterwards, when their forest life began, as it will in forthcoming episodes, Anasuya, the great sage, Atri's holy wife, she extols Sita's love for Rama. And Sita answers, well, how else could it be? Rama is a perfect being. His love for me equals mine for him. His affection is unchanging. Pure of heart, he has mastered the senses. So we can leave that off in anticipation of next week. And Ram and Sita, as I said, spent 12 happy years in Ayodhya. And then the next thing, of course, is the Lord and his consort in human form have no experience of hardships and sorrows in this conflicts on life of earth, because their happiness is a creative prediction of their life. They create their own life, just as we do through our own thoughts. But is it thoroughly useful? Is it the best thing not to have sorrows or conflicts, to live a perfect life, maybe something like in heaven, and not have any difficulties and hardships? We already know life is not like this. So we wait in anticipation for the next episodes in this wonderful story of Rama, this great epic, one of two epics, ancient epics, which are historical accounts, that is, in the category of itihasas. And you may ask, what about all the fantastic things going on? Is this also historical? Well, they all have a historical basis. And they all have also this different levels of meanings to give us some lessons in life that we can apply ourselves. It is not like mythological stories, in heavens, demons fighting with deities and things like that. This is life. And the beauty of the story in Valmiki's beautiful, beautiful poetry is one of the remarkable compositions and achievements in human history. And with these few words, I wish you a very good weekend, wonderful rest of your weekend. Enjoy your summer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Jai Jai Shri Ramachandra Ki Jai.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Merci beaucoup, Swami.
Om